Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report. Up here in the Carlos area, all on this shoreline here, Carlos Bay. It's back shoreline, closest to the ICW. Got some decent grass beds that are forming in here they've kind of hung in there all summer or all winter long. They're starting to get a little bit better. And as we transition toward the springtime and into the summertime, all this is going to get better and better. Even with the opening of Cedar Bayou and the flow that's coming through there, these areas like this that are a little bit further away will benefit greatly. There are some nice scattered redfish that are up and down this shoreline all the way to the point. Trout have been few and far between as far as the new slot size. As far as that goes, they've been few and far between, but the a lot of undersized trout, 15, 16, something like that. So one of the things that we've been using here is we've been throwing some topwater baits up shallow. Now we've had big moving tides, so we've had this big full moon that just kind of left us. We're on the back side of that now, so we're transitioning out of that. So one thing that you want to try to make sure that you are aware of and get ready to be able to combat with that. We got these wild card days coming up. We got 10 days of heading toward the new moon. So you're going to want to make sure that you have all different kinds of baits to give yourself opportunities to catch fish. And that's one of the things I was fixing to tell you this here. We've been throwing topwater baits up in here. We've been throwing soft dines in here. We've been throwing double D's in here. Down south, all three sizes, supermodel, regular model, burner shad. Everything has caught fish. Nothing has really been consistent as far as one particular bait standing out or shining better than the others. So that's why I tell you is to make sure that you have a choice of different baits, lengths, profile sizes, scent. Little John mirror lures have been good. The provoker has been okay. Matrix shad, marker 54, and the shrimp in both the mullet run. All of them have caught fish, but there's nothing that's been just to hang your hat on it, and we're going to continue to throw this and throw this and throw this. So, if there's been anything that's been pretty consistent, especially coming off the full moon, the burner shad probably would maybe stand just a little bit more over everything else that we have thrown, and that's been in the supernatural and the white ice and purple rain. Are the three flavors that I've been throwing with that just to see because of water clarity. Water clarity has a lot to do with what type of bait as far as the color that you're going to throw. Of course, rule of thumb, dirty water, dark baits, clear water, translucent baits. Always make that sure that you've got those kind of baits in your hand or in your box or whatever you're wading with so you can give yourself an opportunity to really be productive in these areas. The majors and minors played a big part this past week as far as catching fish and being productive in those time frames. If you are not using the majors and minors in your fishing day, you're doing yourself a disservice. These particular time frames are important, especially when you have a lot of stuff that's working in your favor. Structure, bait working in there, tidal movement. Of course, it's all filtered around that. What the moon's doing, that water's going to move in or out. So especially when we had these big moons, man, we had big moving tides. So there was lots of water that were moving at time frames. And if you had yourself set up, you were going to be very productive and have productive days. That said, again, we're starting to transition away from that full moon, starting to get into those wild card days. So your days are going to kind of be all over the place. That's why I want you to have different choices, sizes, profiles, scent, whatever. All those different types of baits working in here. The redfish, again, have been decent in here. Trout have been scattered as far as in the slot. It's not been great, but there are some fish that are here. So make sure you got this upcoming week. Weather's going to kind of be all over the place. So if you're up in this area here fishing this, just make sure you take all that into consideration and have yourself a quality day. Back here in St. Charles Bay, straight across from the boat launch there at St. Charles. Get on this shoreline here and work it. I've told y'all this before. I've worked this whole area up in here. There's been some good fish that are working up and down here. Primarily redfish. Again, there's not a lot of trout that we have found just yet as far as in that quality range, as far as consistency goes in the new slot size 17 to 23. A lot are fitting in the old slot size of 15 to 25 as far as in that lower side. So we're finding 15s and 16s and 14s, but there are some fish that are there in that size, so you may have to catch several of those to find you some in that slot. That said, the redfish have been good back in these areas. I've been back in this area here, get up there around Boy Scout camp. Big and Little Sharp's been good. Cow chip, all those areas there, there's been pretty good as far as finding a fish here. There's really not been like a bunch of fish in those areas, but we're pulling out one or two here, pulling one or two out here, maybe 3 or 4 here, having opportunities to catch these fish. The one thing that's been consistent back here for the redfish have been the down souths in the regular and burner shad, and the soft dines in that just a little bit shorter, fatter profile have been really good out over these grass edges and these grass potholes that are all out here up and down these shorelines, especially as you get back there toward Boy Scout, maybe Cavasso, if you like to fish the Cavasso area. That's one of my favorite areas. A little further back toward the very back where all the drains and stuff are. Now, if you're going to wade back there in the very back of St. Charles, just be prepared. Super soft back there. When you got enough water back there, those mouth drains coming off those back lakes really can be good, providing that you've got the right stuff setting up for that. You know, your bait working in there, you've got the right amount of wind that's pushing stuff around that's back there for you to either have that wind-driven current or tidal-driven current, so you make sure that you're working on your majors and minors during those time frames. Working all these grass edges, that's where most of the fish have been coming from. So if you know these areas, or you know of other areas that are in there that's got the grass, that's got the nice potholes, maybe got an edge to it or a gut that's off of it, that's been where the production has come from. Again, the soft dine has been really good. The burner shads have been really good. You can throw the top water in that knee-deep water, especially when we've had these low tides. Again, with this big full moon that we had these big moving tides where we had some negative tides at some points, and then we'd have a lot of water come back. So lots of current that's pushing in and out of some of these little areas like St. Charles. It gets a lot of water that pushes in there, and it has a lot of water that drains out of it. So that said, when you get into those areas and you got some of that moving water, then you're going to give yourself an opportunity to catch these fish, because I really like that. There's been a good amount of bait that's been working in these areas here. It hadn't been consistent day in and day out, but that's the one thing, you know, about fishing. You just have to go in there and work the areas that are going to be productive for you, or you think that they're going to be productive for you. Again, what I said in the last video is make sure that you've got on these upcoming days, these next 8 to 10 days that you've got a bunch of different choices to throw, because you're going to have all over the place types of days. Good, bad, great, terrible, excellent, average, poor, whatever. That's what the wild card days are all about, because they're going to give you different opportunities, different things. But if you will work the majors and minors during those time frames, give yourself an opportunity. You may have to go through several baits before you find the bait that they really want as far as color, profile, and size. Those are all the things that you have to consider when you're loading up your bait box. Give yourself 4 or 5 of each of those types of things, so you have something different to throw. Still throwing a 16th ounce jig head. Probably throw a 16th ounce for a large majority of the time frame, maybe till late summer. I want that bait to really stay in that water column a long time and work. So everything is still a little bit slower. We're starting to get temperatures are starting to hover around the 60s. As long as we don't have any more big fronts that come in here and cool everything down for us. But the water consistency is starting to get up in the temps of those mid to upper 60s. This past week, we found a couple of areas where we were even fishing in 70, 71 degree, 72 degree days when the sun was just big old bluebird sky and it was heating up those mud flats. So the temperatures got up and the fish got active, bait got active. So just remember those kinds of tips like that when you're fishing these types of areas. But again, the redfish have been pretty good back in these areas here. Continue to work all these areas like this and you'll find your fish. Long Reef Bend, all the way up to Jaybird Point, down to Sherman's, Back Lakes, all these areas here have been producing some nice redfish. Not consistently. That's been one thing that has been consistent, has been the inconsistency of the fish that are showing up in there. One day that you may hammer them, the next day they're gone. They're like ghosts. So that's one thing you have to really take in consideration. We're really what's going on. These weather patterns that we've had have been kind of all over the place. We've had super still, calm days one day, big bluebird sky, big front pushes in, high winds, tides moving, water going out, water coming back. I mean, you've got all different kinds of scenarios that are taking place. And it affects the fish. 100% it affects the fish. It pushes fish in, pushes fish out. And those are all things that you have to see and make sure that you're taking in consideration before you start your fishing day. If you're not paying attention to what the tides are, what the weather is, what's going on with the high pressure, low pressure, what type of conditions we are with the moon phases, where we are with the major and minor, how big a wind gusts that we're going to have, or overcast days, or bluebird sky days, whatever. If you're not taking in all that stuff into consideration, you're going to do yourself a disservice, and you're not going to have a very productive day. You're going to miss opportunities because you're not fishing the right area based on that information. Or you may be fishing in a good area, but you're not throwing the right bait because you're not matching the color of the water. Too big a bait, too small a bait. You get stuck on one particular kind of bait and you don't want to change it. The old adage is, I want to catch the fish the way I want to catch them, which is fine if that's what you want to do. It may be a long, grinding day for you if that's how you want to approach the day, or how you want to affect or look at your fishing day. But be selective, or be flexible on throwing different types of baits. Man, we were fishing in some knee-deep water this past week, and water was super clear, throwing a translucent bait, and we're doing pretty good with it, and then put on a Paul Brown Original. We're just a easy floater that would float down over the top of those potholes, and the bite picked up immediately. It gave them just a little bit bigger profile bait, a little bit of action on there, just in exactly what they wanted. So we went to catching, maybe 4 or 5 fish to maybe catching a little over a dozen to a dozen and a half redfished in some of these areas, and it become a very productive day because we were willing to change our baits and to try to match whatever they were wanting. You may have to do that 4, 5, 6, 7 times before you find what they want. But if you can kind of get that stuff kind of narrowed in and pay attention to it, see what's going on. I know there's plenty of bait that's working up in these areas here. Again, when these big low tides have been coming out of here, the mouth terrains of these guts back in these areas have been good. We've had just a little bit of water. The back lakes have been good. Get it back there with the top water bait over top of those grass flats and throw that thing out there. Even though that water may be a little bit clear, chunk that bait a long way away from you and work it nice, easy, methodical. Again, incorporating your major and minor in here. You'll come across fish. You will locate fish, and the fish will dictate to you what they want. Profile, color, size, scent, no scent, whatever. Those are all little things that you must pay attention to have your day to be a quality day of fishing. Again, there's been some scattered redfish that are up and down here. One of the days we found some quality redfish that were in here. Some days we hadn't found very many. Some days we found trout in here, but a lot of undersized trout. That new slot size is going to be pretty tough unless you just get into some really good fish at some point. But again, a lot of undersized trout that are in these areas. Give them another, 6 months, and that 17 to 23 will be a pretty good slot size. We're just going to take time for that to get there, but it's going to help our estuaries. It's going to help the spawning time. It's going to help bring the population of our trout system back too. So again, be patient with these areas. Work them, all the mouths out front. Just make sure that you're covered enough water that you can give yourself an opportunity to catch fish. But there are fish that are up in here. Again, take your time with it. See what they want, size-wise, profile-wise, tides, winds, everything. All goes into consideration when you're working these types of areas this time of year. Again, the majors and minors are very important for you to incorporate in your fishing day. Just be patient with it, and you'll locate fish. For watching, I'm Captain Larry Bell.